The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Crystal towers rose toward a ceiling that looked like open space, filled with floating platforms where representatives of 800 alien species watched in silence. Lights drifted through the air like living stars. The room was older than human civilization. It had seen the rise and fall of empires. It had witnessed the surrender of countless worlds. And today, it watched 7 humans stand alone at its center. Ambassador David Manji stood at the front of his delegation. He was a tall man with dark skin and gray hair, wearing a simple black suit instead of the ceremonial robes the council had provided. Behind him stood his team, Dr. Lena Petrova, Humanities, Chief Scientist, General James Hawkins, Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, Trade Minister Yuki Sato, Cultural Advisor Thomas Blake, Dr. Amir Hassan, Quantum Physicist, and Commander Rosa Mendez, pilot of their diplomatic ship. They were surrounded by power beyond imagination. Warships capable of destroying planets hung in orbit above the council station. Beings of living crystal, sentient gas clouds, armored giants of stone, and creatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once filled the seats around them. None of the humans looked afraid. High Magistrate Vorentis, a being made entirely of light and crystal, pulsed with impatience from his elevated platform. He had ruled this chamber for 4,000 years. He had never seen a species refuse to bow. The Terran delegation will show proper respect to this council, Vorentis commanded. His voice echoed through frequencies that made human ears ring. David Manji did not move. Respect goes both ways, High Magistrate. We have not yet seen yours. 800 species gasped, some in shock, some in anger, a few in something that looked almost like hope. You dare speak thus? Vorentis blazed brighter. You stand accused of 17 violations of galactic law, unauthorized expansion beyond your assigned borders, development of forbidden weapons, refusal to submit your homeworld for resource collection, and the destruction of the harvester fleet in your solar system. General Hawkins clenched his jaw. The harvesters, ships that had come to drain Earth's oceans and strip its atmosphere, ships that would have killed 8 billion people without a second thought. We defended ourselves, David said simply. Defense is not permitted under Section 7000 of the Galactic Accord, Vorentis replied. Resources belong to the collective. Your planet was scheduled for processing. Your resistance is illegal. David looked up at the hundreds of species arranged against humanity. Some watched with cold calculation. Others watched with pity. And some, he noticed, watched with something else entirely. Something hidden. Something desperate. May I address the council? David asked. Vorentis pulsed once. You may beg for mercy. I am not here to beg. The words fell like stones into water. Ripples of shock spread through the chamber. Then why have you come? Vorentis demanded. David reached into his jacket pocket. Instantly, thousands of weapons locked onto him. Security shields activated around every council member. Guards moved to intercept, but David only pulled out a small data chip. He held it up for all to see. I came to show you what humanity found in the darkness beyond. The darkness beyond. The empty void past the galaxy's edge. The forbidden zone where no ship had ever returned. Every species in the chamber knew of it. Every species feared it. Impossible, Vorentis said. No vessel can survive the darkness. No vessel could, David agreed. But humanity did. He inserted the chip into the chamber's broadcast system. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the crystal ceiling transformed into a window showing something that silenced every being in the room. Darkness. Perfect, absolute darkness stretching forever. And moving through that darkness were shapes. Vast shapes. Shapes that seemed wrong, that existed in ways the mind could not understand. Shapes that were waking up. 3 years ago, David said into the silence, a human expedition crossed the darkness beyond. We found what lives on the other side. We found what has been sleeping, and we discovered something else. He paused, looking up at the horror still moving in the recording. They are coming. In 60 years, they will reach this galaxy. And when they arrive, they will do to the Council what the Council does to lesser species. The recording ended. The ceiling returned to crystal and light, but the fear remained. This is a trick, Varentis said. His voice had lost some of its strength. A fabrication meant to frighten us into releasing your species. Every measurement in that recording can be verified, Doctor. Hassan spoke up. We left the coordinates, the mathematics. The proof. Your scientists will confirm it within hours. Then why tell us? Demanded a massive being of living metal from the Farron delegation. Why warn the ones who would execute? You? David Manji smiled the saddest smile any being in that chamber had ever seen. Because humanity came here to offer you a choice. He looked at Varentis. We did not come to beg. We came to negotiate. You have nothing to negotiate with, Varentis snapped. You are 7 beings on a platform. Your world is surrounded by 10,000 warships. Your species is nothing. David nodded slowly. You are right. We are 7 beings. Our world is surrounded. Our species number is only 15 billion. He paused. But we are the only species who has ever survived the darkness. We are the only species who made contact with what lives there and returned. And we are the only species who knows how to fight them. Complete silence. We did not just explore the darkness beyond, High Magistrate. We went to war there. For 3 years, in void so complete your sensors cannot detect it, humanity fought things your civilization cannot imagine. We lost millions. We lost ships. We lost hope. His voice hardened. But we learned. We adapted. And we survived. That cannot be true, Varentis began. Impossible? Dr. Petrova stepped forward. Humanity has survived many impossible things. When your harvesters came for our world, when your council declared us resources, we did not surrender. We went into the darkness you told us was death, because dying free was better than living as slaves. David began walking toward the edge of the platform. Wait, Varentis said. For the first time in 4,000 years, his voice held uncertainty. What are you doing? We are leaving. You cannot leave. You are accused. You will face judgment. Your guards cannot stop us. David did not turn around. Did you think humanity would walk into the most dangerous place in the galaxy without a way out? Throughout the chamber, council members noticed something strange. The air felt different. Heavier. A low hum filled the room that had not been there before. What have you done? Varentis demanded. Dr. Hassan smiled. Quantum anchoring. The 7 of us are connected to a location outside this chamber in ways your science cannot understand. The moment Ambassador Manji gives the word, we simply stop existing here and continue existing somewhere else. Impossible. That word keeps appearing, Dr. Hassan said. Perhaps the council should update its dictionary. David stopped at the platform's edge. 60 years, High Magistrate. That is how long you have. 60 years to learn what humanity learned. To build weapons that can fight what is coming. He turned to face the chamber one final time. We offered to help. We offered to share everything we sacrificed for. All we asked was to be treated as equals. His eyes swept across 800 species. You refused. He turned to his delegation. Commander Mendez, take us home. Rosa Mendez touched a device on her wrist. WAIT. Varentis blazed white. You cannot simply leave. A galaxy depends on. We require. You require nothing from us, David said quietly. Not anymore. The 7 humans began to shimmer. Their forms grew transparent. "One last thing," David said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "When they come, when the things from the darkness begin to feed, remember this moment. Remember that humanity offered salvation, and you answered with judgment." His form flickered. "Goodbye, High Magistrate. May your next 4,000 years be interesting." And then they were gone. For 10 seconds, the grand chamber was silent. Then every alarm in the station began to scream. 6 months passed since the humans vanished from the council chamber. The great war fleet of the Galactic Council hung in orbit around Earth like a crown of sharp metal. 10,000 warships bristled with weapons that could crack continents open. For 6 months, they had surrounded the blue planet, waiting for the humans to surrender. The surrender never came. Admiral Korath of the Council Fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the small blue world below. The insectoid commander had spent 300 years crushing rebellions across the galaxy. He had destroyed civilizations. He had made entire species extinct at the Council's command. But he had never seen anything like humanity. "Admiral," his sensor officer called out, fear in her voice. "Another ship has broken through our blockade? Another one?" Korath's mandibles clicked together in frustration. "How? We have every approach covered." "Unknown, sir. One moment our sensors showed empty space. The next moment, a cargo ship was inside our lines, docking with the human station. This was the 20th ship in the past month. 20 vessels appearing. From nowhere, carrying unknown cargo, then vanishing before the Council forces could respond. And there was something else. Something that troubled Korath far more than ghost ships. Earth was changing. When the blockade began, the planet showed signs of a civilization under us. Age, food shortages, energy problems, panic in their communications. But over the past 3 months, those signs had reversed. Power output had increased by 500%. Strange new structures were appearing in orbit, and the humans had stopped talking. 6 months ago, their networks had been full of news and fear about the blockade. Now there was only silence. A silence that felt deliberate. What are they doing down there? Korath muttered. His answer came faster than expected. His tactical officer suddenly gasped. "Admiral." Multiple contacts emerging from the human moon. Korath spun toward the view screen. Earth's moon, a dead rock the Council's surveys had dismissed as worthless, was splitting open. Massive doors were pulling apart. Inside was a glowing blue light. Ships emerged. Hundreds at first, then thousands. Where did they come from? Korath demanded. "Our scans showed that moon was solid rock." "They must have been building this the entire time," his science officer whispered. "For decades. Maybe longer. Right under our sensors." The human fleet spread out in perfect formation. At their center floated a single ship that made Korath's exoskeleton rattle with instinctive terror. It was enormous. Larger than anything the Council had ever built. Its hull was black, not painted black, but the black of the darkness beyond itself. Light seemed to fall into it and never return. Across its bow, in letters that burned with strange fire, was written a single word: Prometheus. A communication request appeared on Korath's console. He opened it with trembling claws. Ambassador David Mongi's face filled the screen. Behind him, the bridge of the Prometheus hummed with quiet purpose. "Admiral Korath," David said calmly, "we have been expecting your call. You were supposed to be blockaded, starving, weakening. We were supposed to be many things." David smiled. "The Council has a habit of telling species what they should be. Humanity has a habit of being something different. How did you build this? Where did the resources come from?" "We had help." David gestured, and the view shifted to show the fleet spreading around him. 800 species hold seats in the Galactic Council, Admiral. But do you know how many species the Council has conquered? How many have been stripped of their worlds and their dignity? Korith felt his heart sink. 40,000 years of conquest leaves many grudges, David continued. When we walked out of the Council chamber 6 months ago, we were not just leaving. We were sending a message to every species the Council had ever stepped on. We were telling them that someone finally said no. The human fleet was still emerging. Tens of thousands of ships now filled the space around Earth. The Veth answered first. Small creatures the Council never watched carefully. But they are everywhere in your stations, your ships, your facilities. They know things the Council never dreamed they knew. David's eyes hardened. The Mendari answered next. They have been building weapons in the deep asteroid fields for 8,000 years, waiting for someone to fight beside. The Hollow Folk brought ships that exist in 2 places at once. The Burning Ones contributed their star forges, able to build warships in hours. This is impossible, Korith whispered. That word again. David leaned forward. Admiral, I will give you one chance. Take your fleet and leave. Go back to Varentus and tell him that humanity is no longer blockaded. Tell him that the coalition of the forgotten has been born. Tell him that every species he ever conquered is watching this moment and deciding whether to join us. And if I refuse? David's expression grew sad. Then I will show you what we learned in the darkness. Korith looked at his tactical display. His 10,000 ships against 60,000 and growing. But numbers were not the real problem. The real problem was the Prometheus. His sensors could not get a clear reading on it. Every time they tried, the reading slid away, like trying to look at something that existed only in the corner of your eye. All ships, Korith commanded, his voice cracking. Full retreat. Fall back to the Nexus Gate, now. His fleet fled. 10,000 warships turned and ran from a species they had called insignificant, from a world they had scheduled for harvesting, from a civilization they had dismissed as primitive. And as they fled, a new signal broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. It was Ambassador David Mongi's voice. Citizens of the Galactic Council, conquered peoples of 1,000 worlds, slaves and subjects, and those who have forgotten what freedom tastes like. Today, humanity and our allies have liberated Earth. Tomorrow, we will liberate others. The Council's reign is ending. The only question is whether it ends peacefully or whether the galaxy must burn first. Across 900 billion souls, the message spread. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, hope began to stir. In a small observation room overlooking the Grand Chamber, a Veth named Kuris watched the chaos below. The Veth were small insectoid beings, conquered 12,000 years ago and reduced to servants. They had watched species after species get destroyed by the Council. Now, they had watched humanity fight back. Kuris touched a hidden communication device embedded in her chest. Did you receive the transmission? She whispered. The response came from very far away. We received it. Every subjugated species heard the message. And the Mendari are mobilizing. The Hollow Folk have broken their 3,000-year silence. Even the Burning Ones have sent representatives. Kuris's compound eyes glittered. The humans did not just walk away from the Council. They lit a fire that will spread across the galaxy. She looked down at the 1,200 species screaming in panic at their failed blockade. And the Council does not even realize they are about to burn. In the Grand Chamber, High Magistrate Varentus raged at his military commanders. Track them. Find their ship. They cannot have gone far. But the scans came back empty. The human vessel Endurance had vanished from every sensor. High Magistrate, a science advisor said, trembling, we have analyzed the recording the humans provided. The coordinates in the darkness beyond. We compared them to our long-range sensors. And the shapes in the recording, we can detect them now. Now that we know what to look for, we can see them. Varentis went perfectly still. How far away? The humans were generous with their estimate. At current speed, they will reach us in 53 years. The chamber erupted into chaos. Species that had been rivals for 10,000 years turned to each other in horror. Species that had conquered star systems fell into panic. And somewhere in that chaos, the coalition of the forgotten grew stronger. The Nexus Gate was the greatest structure in the galaxy. A ring of impossible metal, larger than most planets, connecting every corner of known space in an instant. For 40,000 years, whoever controlled the Nexus Gate controlled everything. Ambassador David Manji stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, watching the gate grow larger through the view screen. It was beautiful in its way, a monument to engineering genius, a symbol of absolute power. "What are you thinking?" General Hawkins asked, stepping beside him. "I am thinking about what we are about to do," David admitted. "Change everything. Remake the galaxy. And I keep wondering if we have the right." "The right?" Hawkins raised an eyebrow. "David, they were going to harvest Earth, turn our oceans into fuel, process our children into resources." "I know. But we are about to tear down a 40,000-year-old civilization. Even if it was built on slavery, it is still the only order the galaxy has known. What comes after we destroy it?" Dr. Petrova's voice came from behind them. "We build something better." She approached with a datapad in her hands. "I have been studying the Council's records, the ones the Veth gave us. Do you know how many species the Council has completely wiped out? Not conquered, extinct, gone forever. How many?" 18,412. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. 18,000 species that will never exist again, because the Council decided they were inconvenient. David closed his eyes. "The Council is not just cruel," Dr. Petrova continued. "It is wasteful. It destroys potential. In the darkness beyond, we learned that survival requires diversity. The ability to think in ways your enemy cannot predict. The Council has spent 40,000 years creating a galaxy of sameness. And that sameness will get everyone killed when the real threat arrives. That is why we are doing this," Hawkins agreed. "Not revenge, not justice, survival." David nodded slowly. "Then let us survive." The negotiation took place in a white crystal room inside the Nexus Gate station. It was neutral ground. No weapons could function there. No advantages could be claimed. David walked through corridors that had witnessed the surrender of empires. Behind him came his delegation, and beside them walked representatives of the Coalition. Curus of the Veth, a massive armored being named Torrent, who spoke for the Mendari. A flickering hologram called Echo from the Hollow Folk, a creature of living flame named Bright, representing the Burning Ones. High Magistrate Varentis waited with his own delegation. The most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to hear what humanity would demand. "Speak your terms," Varentis said coldly. David stepped forward. "The Coalition demands 3 things. First, the immediate end of the resource integration system. No more species will be harvested. No more worlds will be stripped. Life is not something to be processed." Murmurs spread through the Council delegation. Second, full representation for all species in galactic governance. Real representation. Real votes. Real power. Not token seats while your forces drain their worlds. That would give lesser species influence over their betters, a Council delegate objected. "Unthinkable." "It is necessary," David replied. "The thing coming from the darkness does not care about your hierarchy. It will consume greater and lesser alike." Our only chance is to fight together as equals. And the third demand? Vorentis asked. David paused. This was the one that mattered most. Access to the Nexus Gate network for all species. Free and unrestricted. No more using transportation as a tool of control. The Council delegation erupted in protest. The gate is our most sacred technology. Vorentis snarled. And it will be everyone's pathway to survival. David's voice hardened. If you refuse, we will take it anyway. We have 60,000 ships. We have allies you never knew existed. And we have weapons that make your fleet look like toys. He stepped closer to Vorentis. But more than that, we have time. The creatures from the darkness are 53 years away. 53 years to prepare. But preparation requires coordination across the entire galaxy. If you maintain your monopoly on the gate, species will die that could have been saved. And when the dust settles, there will be no council left to control anything. Vorentis pulsed with conflicting light. If we accept, what then? Then we share everything we learned in the darkness. The weapons, the strategies, the alliances, everything humanity sacrificed millions to discover. We give it freely to everyone, including you. Why? Vorentis demanded. Why would you help us after everything we planned to do? David smiled sadly. Because humanity has a saying, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. We could spend the next 50 years hunting down everyone who wronged us. Or we could spend it building something strong enough to survive. He shrugged. We choose survival. The chamber fell silent. Vorentis consulted with his delegation in whispers David could not hear. Minutes passed. The council requires time to deliberate, Vorentis finally said. You have 6 hours, David replied. After that, we assume your answer is no. In a private chamber, Vorentis stood before the council's inner circle. He is bluffing, Admiral Korath insisted. They cannot have the weapons he claims. Can they not? Senator Myra of the Valanthi asked. Our scientists have analyzed their data. If they are lying with physics that should not exist. Accepting their terms means destroying everything we built, Korath argued. The hierarchies, the control, everything that maintained order for 40,000 years. Order? A new voice spoke. Ancient. Weary. It belonged to Archivist Queleth, the oldest living council member. A being of pure thought who had witnessed the council's founding. What we maintained was not order, Queleth said. It was stagnation. For 40,000 years, we crushed innovation. We eliminated diversity. We punished any species that dared to grow beyond their place. We told ourselves it was for stability. The archivist's presence flickered with something like shame. The truth is simpler. We were afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of anything we could not control. So we built a galaxy of control. And now we have created exactly what the humans described. A galaxy too rigid to survive real threat. What are you suggesting? Vorentis demanded. I am suggesting the humans have given us a gift. Not submission, honesty. The hardest gift to give and the hardest to receive. Queleth's form pulsed with sudden intensity. For 40,000 years, I watched this council devour civilizations. I told myself it was necessary. I was wrong. You cannot suggest we surrender to humans, Korath snarled. I suggest we choose to survive. Something is coming from the darkness. Something our entire civilization cannot stop alone. The humans survived it. They learned from it. They came back to warn us. And we put them on trial. Queleth turned to Vorentis. You have served faithfully for 4,000 years. You have dispensed justice according to laws written by beings who believed they were gods. But those gods are dead, and their laws have become chains. Queleth's presence expanded to fill the room. It is time to break those chains. Not because the humans demand it, because the galaxy requires it. Silence ruled the chamber. Then slowly, Varentis' crystalline form began to dim. Not in defeat, in acceptance. If we do this, he said quietly, everything changes. Yes, Queleth replied. Is that not wonderful? 6 hours later, Varentis faced David Monji in the negotiation chamber. The council accepts your terms, the High Magistrate said. David exhaled slowly. Then we have work to do. Indeed we do. Varentis paused. The broadcast you mentioned, the one to the entire galaxy. We request permission to stand beside you when you make it. David studied the ancient being of light and crystal. Why? Because the galaxy needs to see that we can change. That even after 40,000 years, we can choose a different path. David nodded. Then stand with us, High Magistrate, and let us show the galaxy what hope looks like. Ambassador David Monji stood in the broadcast center of the Nexus Gate Station. Equipment surrounded him that would send his words to 900 billion souls across the galaxy. Behind him stood his coalition, humans, Veth, Mendari, Hollow, Folk, Burning Ones, dozens of species that had answered the call, and beside them, in a moment that would be remembered for 1,000 years, stood High Magistrate Varentis. 15 seconds, Commander Mendez reported. David adjusted his collar. His hands were steady. His heart was not. 10 seconds. Dr. Petrova touched his shoulder. Whatever happens, you have already done what no one else could. You made them listen. 5 seconds. David took a breath. Broadcasting. The light turned green. Across the galaxy, every screen activated at once. Citizens of the galaxy, David began. My name is David Monji. I am a human, a member of the species your council scheduled for resource integration 6 months ago. I am speaking to you because everything you believe about the universe is about to change. He paused to let the words settle. 3 years ago, a human expedition did something the Galactic Council called impossible. We crossed the darkness beyond, the void past the galaxy's edge where no ship had ever returned. We went there because our world was dying, because the Council had declared us resources, and because we decided that death in the unknown was better than execution by those who called themselves civilized. Images appeared on every screen across the galaxy, the same images shown in the Council chamber. Impossible darkness, vast shapes moving through it, things that defied reason. This is what we found. The Void Walkers, entities that exist outside everything the galaxy has known. They are vast, they are hungry, and they are coming. The images shifted to show mathematical projections and arrival times. In 52 years, the first wave will reach the outer arm. Within a century, they will spread across everything. They do not negotiate. They do not conquer. They consume, not just matter, energy, information, the fabric of space itself. David's voice hardened. For 3 years, humanity fought these things. We lost millions. We lost ships. We lost hope. But we also learned. We discovered weapons that can hurt them. We made allies among other things in the darkness. Beings the Council drove away 30,000 years ago. He stepped closer to the camera. Now we are here to share what we learned. Not to conquer, not to rule, but to give every species a chance. Behind him, Varentis stepped forward. The entire galaxy watched in shock as the High Magistrate stood beside a human. I am High Magistrate Varentis, the crystalline being said. For 4,000 years, I served the Galactic Council. I dispensed what we called justice. I enforced what we called order. I told myself everything we did was necessary. His form pulsed with something like pain. I was wrong. The council was wrong. For 40,000 years, we built an empire on conquest. We eliminated diversity. We destroyed any species that dared to be different. We made the galaxy weaker. Varentis turned to face David. The humans offered us partnership. We answered with judgment. They offered us knowledge. We answered with condemnation. They offered us survival. And we tried to kill them. He faced the camera again. Today, that changes. The Council accepts the Coalition's terms. Full representation for all species. An end to resource integration. Open access to the Nexus Gate. The galaxy held its breath. This is not surrender. This is evolution. The Council was built to control a galaxy. What comes next must be built to save one. David spoke again. In the next 50 years, we will need every ship, every weapon, every brilliant mind. We will need species that have been enemies to fight side by side. We will need to build things never built before. His eyes swept across the camera. This will not be easy. Many will not survive. But if we stand together, truly together as equals, we have a chance. He paused. Humanity has a saying. The stars are not given to those who wait. They are taken by those who dare. Today, I ask every species to dare with us. David stepped back. The Coalition members stepped forward. Humans and aliens together. Former enemies and ancient allies standing as one. This is the Coalition of the Forgotten. But we are not forgotten anymore. And neither are you. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, 900 billion souls reacted on conquered worlds. Species that had lived under the Council's boot for ages rose up. Not in V. Iolans. In hope. Communication networks that had been silent for thousands of years blazed with messages. On Council worlds, citizens demanded answers. Why had the threat been hidden? Why had the humans been condemned for warning them? In hidden places across the galaxy, preparations that had been waiting for generations were finally activated. 6 months later, representatives from 2,000 species gathered in the expanded Nexus Gate Station. The Coalition had grown beyond anything David had imagined. He walked through corridors filled with beings of every shape and size. Veth workers chatted with Farron engineers. Mendari soldiers compared weapons with human marines. A hollow folk philosopher debated with a Burning One artist. It is chaos, General Hawkins observed. It is beautiful chaos, Dr. Petrova said. 6 months ago, half these species would not speak to each other. Now they argue about how to save the galaxy. They reached the summit chamber, a vast space redesigned to hold every form of life. Water tanks for aquatic species. Heat zones for the burning ones. Cold zones for ice dwellers dotted the center. A holographic display showed the galaxy and the darkness at its edge. Latest projections, Dr. Hassan reported. First contact in 49 years. That is faster than original estimates, someone objected. They are accelerating. They know we are watching. The chamber fell silent. Then we prepare faster, David said. What is our status? Curris stepped forward. The Coalition now includes 1,700 species. Shipyard production is up 400%. We have established 12 defensive lines. Weapons development? Torrent of the Mendari rumbled forward. We have copied 27 of the weapons the humans provided. We are making progress on the dimensional shields. What about the dwellers? Dr. Petrova asked. The beings from the darkness who allied with humanity? Echo of the hollow folk flickered. The dwellers remain cautious. They watch more than they act. They are testing us. We have contacted something else, David said quietly. Something from deeper in the darkness. Not the walkers. Something older. Something that fears them as much as we do. Before anyone could respond, an alarm filled the station. Emergency. A technician shouted. Multiple contacts emerging from the darkness boundary. Every being turned to the display. At the galaxy's edge, space was tearing open. How many? David demanded. Hundreds of thousands. They are broadcasting on every frequency. Put it through. The chamber filled with a vibration that was not quite. Sound. Children of the galaxy. We have heard your call. We have seen your unity. And we have decided. The shapes emerging were vast. Larger than planets. Older than stars. But they were not the walkers. These glowed with light that had no source. For 30,000 years, we waited in the dark. We watched your galaxy destroy itself with fear. We had given up on you. Defensive systems locked on. Ships prepared for battle. But one small species found US. Asked US questions. Treated US as equals. And now that species has changed everything. The shapes stopped at the galaxy's edge. We are the eldest. We were ancient when your stars were born. We know what comes from the true darkness. And we know that alone. None of you can survive. David stepped forward. What are you offering? Not offering, joining. You have built a coalition of the forgotten. We wish to be remembered. The chamber fell silent. Then welcome, David said slowly, to the fight for survival. The galaxy would never be the same. 49 years had passed since humanity walked out of the council chamber. The galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Where the Nexus Gate station once symbolized control, it now served as the heart of the greatest alliance ever assembled. Over 2,000 species worked together across known space and beyond. At its center stood a monument. 7 statues representing the human delegation that had started everything. Ambassador David Mongees stood before that monument. His hair was white with age. His face carried the lines of decades of struggle. But his eyes remained sharp. Hard to believe it has been 50 years, Dr. Petrova said beside him. She was older now, using a hover chair to move, but still fierce. 49, David corrected. We have 1 year before they arrive. 1 year. General Hawkins shook his head. Half a century preparing for something we still do not fully understand. We understand enough. David looked at the statues. We understand that alone we would have died. Together we have a chance. An aide approached. A young Veth named Chirrus, great-grandchild of Curris, who had died peacefully 15 years ago. Ambassador, the final summit is about to begin. David nodded. Let us not keep them waiting. The summit chamber held representatives from 2,000 species, beings of every possible form. Water, fire, crystal, shadow, and light. At the center, a display showed the truth they had gathered to face. The Void Walkers were close now. Their forms could be seen through telescopes. They moved through darkness like hunger given shape. Final status. David called. Admiral Elena Reyes stepped forward. She commanded humanity's fleet now, born 5 years after David first faced the Council. Coalition forces number 12 million ships across 17 defensive lines. The eldest have deployed at key positions. The dwellers have placed their reality anchors at the boundary. Weapons? Fully deployed. The void cutters. The dimensional disruptors. The hope bombs. David raised an eyebrow. Hope bombs? That is what the troops call them. Weapons designed to impose order on chaos, to force reality onto things that exist outside it. Elena paused. They work best when the user believes they will work. Hope as a weapon. David nodded slowly. He remembered discovering that truth. 3 years in the darkness, fighting things that fed on despair. finding that the only thing that truly hurt them was the opposite. "The enemy approaches," said a voice that echoed through dimensions. "An eldest representative. One cycle of your star." Then they reached the first line. 1 year. After 50 years of preparation, 1 year remained. David stepped to the chamber's center. 2,000 species watched him. 50 years ago, 7 humans walked out of a chamber like this one. We were told we were nothing. Our world was worthless. Our lives were resources. He looked around at the assembled delegates. We did not believe them. And when we returned from the darkness with warnings, we did something the galaxy had never seen. We asked for help. Not demanded. Not conquered. Asked. His voice strengthened. The galaxy answered. Not without fear or conflict. But eventually you answered. Because every sentient being knows the truth. Alone, we are limited. Together, we are unlimited. He turned to face the display. Tomorrow, the final battle begins. Some of us will not survive. Many will not survive. But whatever happens, we face it together. His eyes swept across 2,000 species. Choose hope. Choose unity. Choose to fight for a future not yet written. The chamber erupted. Not in chaos. In commitment. 2,000 species raising their voices as one. And somewhere in that sound, if you listened carefully, you could hear something else. The Void Walkers sensing the light ahead. And for the first time in their existence, hesitating. The first wave hit the outer defensive line like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Ships died in billions. Stars went dark. Space itself screamed as reality and unreality collided, but the line held. Elena Reyes stood on the bridge of her flagship, the David Mwangi, watching the impossible battle unfold. 3rd Division. Reinforce Sector 7. Eldest units begin phase resonance. Dwellers now. The Void Walkers were vast and terrible, but they were not invincible. Not anymore. Void cutters sliced through forms that had never known pain. Dimensional disruptors tore holes in things from outside normal space. Hope bombs exploded in bursts of pure belief. The walkers recoiled. They are retreating. A sensor officer shouted. The first wave is breaking. But Elena knew better. Behind the first wave came a second, larger, darker, and behind that, more. All forces prepare for wave 2. This is what we trained for. She looked at the display showing the coalition fleet. Millions of ships, thousands of species, fighting side by side. Today we show the universe what hope can do. The battle lasted 1 full year. Wave after wave of Void Walkers crashed against the coalition's lines. Species that had been enemies for millennia fought and died together. The eldest used powers older than stars. The Dwellers anchored reality against the consuming darkness. And through it all, the coalition held. The final walker fell quietly. A last burst of energy. A final scream. And then silence. Across the galaxy, beings who had been fighting for their lives suddenly stood in a universe without enemies. Sensors showed clear space. The darkness was dark again, but with the darkness of distance, not consumption. Elena slumped in her command chair. Around her, her crew stared at their displays in disbelief. Is it over? Someone asked. A signal came from the darkness boundary. From the eldest. It is done. The walkers are broken. Their hunger is silenced. Elena exhaled. Casualties? 2.7 million ships. 43 billion lives. The number hit her like a physical blow. 43 billion. But against the alternative, against every living thing in the galaxy being consumed, it was victory. Get me Ambassador Mwangi. David stood before the monument one last time. He was 97 years old, kept alive by medical technology that had not existed when he was born. The monument had been expanded. Where once it showed 7 humans, it now showed representatives of every species that had fought and died. 2,000 species, united in stone as they had been in life. "They want to add your statue," Dr. Petrova said. She was even older, confined to a hover chair. "For starting everything." David shook his head. "I did not start anything. I just walked out of a room. You walked out at exactly the right moment. You spoke when others stayed silent." A young human approached. Born after the battle. Growing up in a galaxy she could barely imagine being different. "Ambassador Manji? I am documenting the anniversary. May I ask you something?" "Of course." Looking back at everything, what was the most important moment? David considered the question. Around him, the station hummed with life. Beings of every species working together. "The moment we walked out," he said. Not because it was brave, because of what it meant. The Council spent 40,000 years teaching that power was everything, that the strong dominated the weak. He looked at the monument. When we walked out, we showed another way. We showed that sometimes the most powerful thing is refusing to play by someone else's rules. That true strength is standing for what you believe, even when everyone says it is impossible. And the coalition? The battle? All built on that one moment. 7 insignificant humans who chose to walk away rather than kneel. He smiled at the memory. The galaxy realized its doom that day. But not the doom the Council intended. They realized their system was doomed. That anything built on fear must fail. That the only way to survive is together, as equals united by hope. The journalist recorded his words. "Anything else for history?" David laughed. "Just this. Humanity did not save the galaxy. The galaxy saved itself. We just reminded it how." 1,000 years later, in an academy built where the Nexus Gate station once stood, a professor addressed her students. What made humanity different? Why did they change everything? The students watched ancient recordings. 7 humans facing judgment. Walking away. They had hope, the professor said. Not optimism. Hope. The choice to believe things can improve, even when everything says otherwise. The decision to try when trying seems pointless. She turned to her students. Beings of every species. The Coalition era lasted 300 years. The Harmony era continues today. We have explored the darkness, made peace with the eldest, found other galaxies. She looked at them, and it began with 7 humans who walked out of a room. She smiled. Class dismissed. And remember, hope is always a choice. Make it every day. The students left. And somewhere in the stars, the light humanity sparked continued to spread, because the galaxy learned the truth that Day.Doom was not what happened when humanity walked away. Doom was what happened when hope did, and hope never would.